G'day. In August 2024, Logan Sargeant was dumped by Williams F1 team and replaced by Franco Colapinto. But who's this young rookie and how has his life changed? You're about to find out. You'll remember that big crash of Logan Sargeant's at the Zandvoort race, 2024 Dutch GP. Well, the team made the decision straight away to drop the US racer. And given that Carlos had been signed for 2025 onwards, they could really only offer a driver 9 races. There were a handful of options, including Mick Schumacher. But all of those were passed over in favour of Argentine driver Franco Colapinto. And I've got to tell you, that came as a shock to almost everybody in the paddock. I guess he was always a contender, being from the Williams Junior team. But Liam Lawson was touted as being loaned to Williams from Red Bull under certain conditions. Mick Schumacher was being heavily pushed by Toto Wolff, and no doubt there were others who came into contention. But pretty quickly, James Vowles was on to Franco's management, and that is Jamie and Maria from Bullet Sports Management. In fact, I think it was pretty much straight after that crash. James's situation was he had to find somebody in a few days because we were back-to-back races, with the next one being the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. So on the 27th of August, Franco was announced as the Williams driver for those remaining 9 races, partnering with Alex Albon. A little bit of background on Franco first. He's 21, born in Buenos Aires. Prior to making the jump to F1, he was racing in F2 with MP Motorsports and was in 6th position in the championship when he got the call-up. I'll go into his earlier racing career a little bit later, but if we go back to last Thursday before the Italian Grand Prix, he was the very first driver to arrive into the paddock in Monza. I was there luckily early, caught him walking in, and he was obviously thrilled. It was his first time in the paddock as an F1 driver. At one point, I think the Williams photographer said, "Hey, can you stop here and let's get a photo underneath the W logo," before he headed off into the hospitality suite. I'll jump now to Sunday when he came in. I did have a chat with him and said, "What word describes the way you're feeling today?" And he said, "Best day of my life." So 5 words. And then we went on to chat for about 30 seconds about his feelings and how he'd worked so long and hard, and it came as a shock, and obviously thrilled to be there. And then he introduced me to his manager, Maria. Now, Maria is an absolute delight. And at one stage, Franco says, "Oh, Kim, can you do me a favour? She really wants to be in Women of the Paddock." I thought, sure, let's put Maria in. The first time I'd met her, and she was pretty jolly about the whole affair. And as she moved back for me to take this photo, Franco joined her, and I thought, why not? Let's put both of them in Women of the Paddock. First time I've ever had a male in Women of the Paddock, I think. And then on the Monday after I put that post up, I saw Franco's comment in the comments section, to which he had a whole host of replies. But Maria and Jamie have been absolutely flat out handling media inquiries since the announcement. And no wonder too, because he is F1's newest rookie. So I thought, let's do a print collaboration with the young fella. And we're signing in Singapore. 100 copies of this image was taken at Ascari on his very first F1 weekend. It's a memorable time for the youngster, and you can be a part of it by getting on to kimellman.com, go to the shop, pick the print number that you want, and in Singapore he'll sign all 100, and then they'll be dispatched to all of those buyers around the world. He's racing with the number 43 in Formula 1. Is this the same number he raced in F2? It is not. He raced with number 12 there, which will now be used by his stand-in F3 driver, Oliver Goethe, who got the call-up. And on, I think it was Thursday, I followed Franco out to the MP Motorsports garage in the F2 paddock, and I noticed that they'd completely changed the colour scheme of the car. They were stripping off the old colours and wrapping it in a new orange vinyl. Is he the first driver to use number 43? I think he is. So he has that to his name. Who was the last F1 driver to hail from Argentina? It was this man, Gastón Mazzacane, is that how I pronounce it? Well before my time. I can also tell you that Argentinian fans are some of the most fanatic in the world. Every post I put up is peppered with Argentinian flags. And with his promotion to F1, his support will skyrocket. In fact, it's already skyrocketed if you look at his numbers on Instagram. Let's talk about the Brazil race, early November. There will be a sea of Argentinian supporters there because it's only, I think, a 2.5-hour flight from Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo, and it wouldn't surprise me if Williams had to organise security for him at that event. So what initially was the reaction from the media? Well, a lot of surprise, but one from ESPN told me normally they bring 2 or 3 people to an F1 race. As soon as Franco was announced, they upped their plans big time, sending 12 people to Monza. Let me tell you, the differences between the F2 paddock and the F1 paddock are enormous. F2, there might be 3 or 4 photographers wandering around at any time. There might be 30 guests, visitors, and it's quite open. Drivers often seen standing around talking to each other. F1, there are hundreds of fans in there sometimes, and of course media like you would not believe. So over his first weekend in Monza, Franco would definitely have noticed the ramp up of interest in him. He's 175 centimetres tall, 5 foot 8 inches, which puts him about the same height as Zhou Guanyu. He speaks Spanish, English, and perhaps more languages. I'll ask him next race. What's he like? He's a lovely young fella. I think I've spoken to him twice prior to him entering Formula One, then a couple of times over the weekend. The first photo I took of Franco was in Spa 2022 on his scooter. Since then I've taken a number of photos, but I've never really concentrated on the young fella. I never thought he was a candidate to be stepping into F1. However, at the end of last season, at the post-season testing day in Abu Dhabi, he stepped into a Williams, didn't use number 43, used 46. That is the test driver number for the Williams team. At Imola, I caught a very happy Franco celebrating a win, and then at Silverstone he took part in FP1, driving the Williams car. There are some reports that Franco was a pay driver. In other words, somebody was paying his way into the team. Certainly Argentinian IT and software company Globant, which has a market cap of about $8.6 billion, came on board as a sponsor for Williams at the same time that Franco was announced. They backed him into F2, where he was the first Argentine driver to compete in F2 in a decade, and they are already a sponsor of Formula One. They've just simply kicked some more money directly into Williams. And from the next race, we expect to see a whole lot more Argentinian logos on the car. But to be clear, Franco is no rich kid. He's had to run his motoring career on a shoestring budget, much like someone like Esteban Ocon. So if we go back to his first outing on track, his first race in Monza, how did he go? Well, he did better than Kimi Antonelli, who of course had the off very early in that FP1 session when he had just one session in the Mercedes. Franco, on the other hand, just worked his way up through the sessions. Come quali, was on a hot lap and ran wide at one of the Lesmos. And unfortunately, that put paid to his fast lap. He ended up starting 18th, but finished 12th, not too far out of the points. But most importantly, he brought the car home without any damage. And during those practice sessions, he had no more than 8 consecutive laps. And then he was faced with 53 laps around the fastest track on the calendar. He certainly left on a high, and after the race he popped out and greeted some of his fans on pit wall. But how's he going to go in the next couple of races? Because these are punishing races. You've got Baku and you've got Singapore. Baku, the walls are very close, as is Singapore. These are tight tracks, and then you add Singapore's stifling heat and humidity. It's going to be a real test for the youngster. So this week, don't doubt that he won't be working very hard on his neck strength, because you need a lot more neck strength in an F1 car because of the better braking and the higher G-forces around corners. And he'll also be working hard on his fitness because, of course, Singapore zaps it out of a driver. I think what will be interesting is seeing Oliver Bearman up against Franco Colapinto in Baku, because Oliver is stepping in for Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Kevin clocked up too many points on his super license and has to sit out a race. I wonder whether Kevin will be coming to Baku to sit on the sidelines for that race. We'll find out soon enough, though. Just a couple of things about Franco's early career. At 14, he moved to Italy to race karts. And during those years, he was pretty much on his own. He had to fend for himself, cooking, washing his clothes, had to learn Italian. He grew up very quickly. You might have seen some comments where he's been compared to an Argentinian great footballer, Lionel Messi. He takes that with a pinch of salt, but it wouldn't surprise me if Messi actually got behind Franco and sent him a message of encouragement at some stage during the season. That'd be nice to see. There are 46 million people in Argentina, and I have no doubt that the ratings for Franco's first race would have been absolutely through the roof. Is it likely to continue? I think so. And what of Franco's future? What does 9 races in Formula One do for a young driver? Well, it'll make or break him. If he does poorly, that'll hurt him big time. But I think given his start and his endeavour and his brilliance behind the wheel, I would be suggesting that this is a great opportunity for him to put himself top and centre for a drive in Formula One. Now, I wouldn't think he's going to get a drive in 2025, but in 2026, if he's performed admirably over these 9 races, I think he's going to be the number 1 contender. Lower rung teams are always worried that when they put a new driver on, especially a rookie, that they're going to damage the car, cost them a lot of money, and that comes out of their cost cap. If Franco gets through pretty much unscathed, he would be a safe bet, and his value to any of those teams would have increased dramatically. I'll tell you what will be interesting is once he finishes his 9 races with Formula One, and I presume goes back to F2, there'll be a huge difference. He'll go from 5-star hotels back to mid-tier accommodation, and there'll be far less interest from the media. But for the time being, he'll be on a high, and there'll be huge interest in his progression in the sport. Now, before you go and head off and have a look at some of these sites, I'll remind you to go to kimillman.com, go to the shop and order a signed print by Franco, and it'll be delivered to most countries in the world. And if we can't deliver it to your country, perhaps get it delivered to a friend or a family member in another country and have them send it. Argentina is tricky to get stuff to, I can tell you. But for the moment, I'll say thanks for watching and stay passionate. And his value to it, and his value. What's that? I'm recording.